up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. While you've a Lucifer to light your bag, smile, boys, and style. What's the use of worrying? It never was.
Hello, and welcome to the second after-action report for the player versus player battle Casa Matronola. In the previous battle, I was attacking with Panzer Grenadiers. In this video, I'm defending with the East Surrey Regiment from 1st Battalion, 78th Infantry Division, British 8th Army, also known as the Battle Axe Division. This is a mirror battle and was fought at the same time as my attack. This way, no one has any tactical advantages with prior knowledge of the map. My objective is to hold Casa Matronola against a German probing force. For my forces, I don't have enough requisition points for the full battalion, so I have 2 infantry companies A and B and a support company. Each company includes 3 platoons, with each platoon having 3 sections, a command team and a 2-inch light mortar. One section comprises 10 men, a single Bren light machine gun, a Thompson submachine gun with the section leader, with the rest of the section equipped with Lee Enfield No. 1 Mark IIIs. One section also includes a Piat anti-tank weapon. The company commander has a 2 IC and a sniper section, and I've also attached 1 Vickers HMG to each company commander. The support company has 4 81mm mortars on map and 4 off map with a further 6 tubes attached, giving me a total of 14 81mm mortars and around 1,250 81mm HE rounds. Now, I must admit I made 2 mistakes in my force selection. Firstly, I forgot about TRPs, and secondly, I thought I'd included the HMG elements in my support company. I had not, so imagine my dismay when I realised I have only 2 Vickers HMGs and 18 Brens across the whole battalion. On the positive side, I have a Bofors 40mm AA gun, but it's static, and I have 2 Kitty Hawk fighter bombers for air support. My opponent can bring 3 full companies with potentially over 60 MG42s, plus artillery. There is no way I'm going to try and face off against the German army in a toe-to-toe fight. So looking at the terrain from a defensive perspective, there are no obstacles preventing an avenue of attack, so my entire front is open. For my key terrain, I've identified the 2 farm buildings set back on my left flank, north of the lower and upper orchard, and the main farmstead at Casa Matronola. My primary defence line on my right flank is important, but I'll fall back if I need to. Reviewing observation and fields of fire, I've decided to set my main defence line slightly back and place skirmish forces on a front line. The lay of the land has a slight incline and crest in sight of my defence. This means my primary defence lines shouldn't be in line of sight at long or medium range. What this all means is my opponent has to crest the hill on my right flank and in the centre to get line of sight. This means all my weapons become usable, not just HMGs and Brens. On my left flank, the lay of the land is more open, meaning MGs can be used to suppress beyond the effective range of my Enfields. To try and mitigate that, I've positioned my 4 81mm mortars biased to my left rear. I've also placed a forward observer at each extreme flank to guide in my air support and mortars. Cover and concealment are limited. As I mentioned, I've tried to use the lay of the land to limit my opponent's fields of fire. I have low brick walls for cover, which is helpful, but they have no benefit against artillery. Finally, the conditions. It's dry and the ground is firm, so visibility is good and there is nothing to slow anyone down. There is a heavy wind from the east which will disperse any smoke. With my analysis complete, I need to make some decisions. From a strategy perspective, I'm not going to be successful engaging at long to medium range. I'll be seriously outgunned. I also have to assume he'll have artillery, which I need to avoid, and if I engage at range, it gives Koldo time to focus his artillery on my defence. I think my only chance of victory is attrition and delay. By putting as much of my defence as possible with short lines of sight, I force him to trudge his arse over to me, taking time and energy, and I hope to give my opponent as small a space to attack as possible, whilst giving myself the largest possible defence line. I shall use my air support and mortars in a delaying tactic, putting large, slow swaves of fire down to delay any German advance. The 81mm mortar may not have the biggest bang, but 10 off-map tubes can make 1100 rounds last a while. With my tactics decided and my soldiers set in place, we now sit and wait to see what Koldobika does. Within the first minute, I get a number of spots on my right flank. All of my defence line is on weapons hold and mostly hidden. Just a couple of spotters are looking across the battlefield for intel. This is the way I'll keep it for a while. I'm not going to engage beyond the effective range of my Enfields, 400 metres or less. I push forward a scout team on my left. I want intel on any attack there for my decision on mortar and air support. The two-man team quickly gets spotted. The 2-inch mortar of 4th Platoon B Company puts down some covering rounds. As I suspected, it's not long before MG fire comes in on my scouts, and it looks like spotting mortars are landing on my right flank. We're only a few minutes in and artillery starts to fall on my right flank. Few spotting rounds, so it's either pre-planned or using TRPs. Thankfully it's light, so casualties are not too debilitating. Koldo appears to be advancing across a broad front. I have the most spots on my right flank because of the open terrain. I question my strategy to hold fire and not engage, relying on my mortars to delay. I decide to stick with it and not second guess. I'm also calling mortar fire on my right flank, and I've called in air support on both left and right flanks. I order A Company to pull back, but they're suppressed by the artillery fire, and very few sections start to move. I take casualties. As the artillery continues to fall, A Company finally starts to pull back, but it is sporadic, and the longer they are on the line, the more casualties I take. Artillery also starts to fall on the Casa. My own on-map mortars put fire onto the left flank.
Fire from threat. Out.
whilst my right flank is plastered with heavy artillery and airburst rounds.
Hello, check fire.
To help cover my right flank, I order 5th Platoon B Company forward to the left of the artillery to try and delay any advance.
Fire for effect. Out.
Cover me! Cover me!
German artillery continues to fall on the Casse. On my right, I start to set up a deeper defence line. Fifth Platoon that I brought forward are taking a beating at the front line. Finally, a Kitty Hawk enters the AO and I see a distant strafing run. Not sure what he's shooting at, but the Surreys give a cheer. Smoke falls on my right flank. Whilst my counter battery falls on my left flank and the Kitty Hawk continues to harass behind Koldo's lines. I anticipate an attack on my right flank, but my first defensive line is covered by Koldo's artillery, so I fall back to a second line which is perpendicular to my primary line. my forward observer team risk getting isolated on my right flank, so I order them to fall back. As Koldo starts his attack on my right flank, his preparatory barrage starts to fall close to where my primary defence line was, but it's also falling dangerously close to his own forward line. The barrage quickly halts. Inaccurate artillery is certainly modelled in combat mission. Focused fire such as this is probably the officers who called in the barrage. Not only has this stunted my opponent's attack, but it has allowed me time to call in my own mortar rounds.
Roger effect. Over.
In the centre, I decide to pull back 6th Platoon B Company to prevent them being isolated and potentially caught in enfilade fire. Just as they withdraw, a German attack comes in. A second heavy caliber artillery barrage falls on a primary defensive line on my right flank. Thankfully, I've abandoned the line and there is no one there. We are 25 minutes into a 60-minute battle, and my defence so far is holding. My right flank has withdrawn to a secondary defensive line, as has my centre, and there is only small, light arms fire on my left flank with no attack. So far we've had 3 relatively weak probes, one from the high ground in the centre, one centre right, and one far right. All have been repelled with light casualties on my side. A company on my right has taken notable casualties from artillery, but I believe they are still kind of combat effective, just. I'm guessing any attack is going to come through the orchard in the centre or right flank, so I'm trying to position B Company with the best fields of fire to support A. I also still have a Kitty Hawk. I've called it on the orchard, closer than I'd like, but I think that's where it'll find the most targets. The barrage continues for nearly 10 minutes. Any injured soldiers on my primary defensive line are killed as their comrades watch the barrage rip the earth apart. As the heavy shelling dissipates, my Kitty Hawk swoops in, competing with sporadic 81mm mortars in killing enemy soldiers. B Company's 2IC spots Germans on my far right flank. Then suddenly artillery starts to fall on my second defensive line. With no time to redeploy, 1st and 3rd platoon are hit hard, taking casualties and causing panic. The objective Casa is also hit again. I don't know if this is a ploy or a full-on attack. The secondary barrage has hit A Company hard and they don't really class as combat effective. But the Germans push in and they are all I have to hold the right flank at the moment. The mortars hitting my second defensive line have ceased, so 1st and 3rd platoon A Company reposition to the secondary defensive line. I also order 4th platoon B Company, which is at full strength, to redeploy to the right flank. I redirect my on-map mortar fire to support my right flank. We are 45 minutes into the battle and the German artillery barrages have finally fallen quiet. Both companies have taken casualties, with A taking the brunt of the artillery on my right flank and at the farm. As expected, the Germans are staging an attack straight after the artillery. I have contact across my front, from the outskirts of my right flank to the high ground in the centre. I'm not so concerned about the high ground. 5th and 6th platoon are defending this area and I have a Vickers and the Beaufort in support. I am concerned about my right flank. At the Casa I have the remnants of 2nd platoon, the battalion HQ and 2IC, all of which have suffered casualties. On my right I'm tentatively holding my 2nd defensive line and I have limited line of sight to assist in the defence of the Casa. I have 4th platoon in support, but I'm reluctant to commit until I'm more certain that the artillery has ceased. The heavy artillery which ravaged the orchard also turned all of the low walls to rubble. I now have much better line of sight to the crest, and the Germans have no hard cover to support their attack. The push in the centre appears to be fairly light, and despite my casualties, I'm able to prevent the Germans gaining fire superiority, and any attack is held, preventing an advance. The attack from the far right is more concerning. I order 4th platoon forward to support my defence. I still have some on-map mortar ammo left. I don't want it to go to waste, so put rounds onto the attackers. My turn to bring the rain. With 10 minutes left, the attack on my right withdraws, and Koldobika surrenders. I secure a total victory for the British. Our forces are comparable in strength. Casualties are also fairly similar. This was a probe, so I'm guessing Koldo put a lot more of his requisition points into artillery. The heavy stuff is costly. His artillery certainly inflicted considerable casualties, but it was also somewhat counterproductive. I've personally not experienced such a situation before, so it would be difficult to consider in any force selection. But with almost all of the low walls destroyed, the British defenders certainly had much better line of sight. I want to thank Koldobika for both of the games. They were a nice choice of map and size of battle, despite my reservations at the start. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and hit the notification button to keep up with the latest content. I have a couple more multiplayer battles that are worth documenting, and I'll get those out as soon as possible. Good health to all, and see you soon.
In town there is a little pub which gives much satisfaction. The boys don't go there for the beer, the barmaid's the attraction. Her age is over. well, quite all that and more on Monday morning. She knows her onions, take my tip, she's heard the gypsy's warning.
Not this side, please.
Oh, missus. She lays on powder, thick as crust. I smacked her cheeks and how she fussed. I couldn't see her face for dust, the barmaid at the Rose and Crown. She wears nice undies full of thrills, all silk and lace and saucy frills. I know because I've paid the bills and seen them at the Rose and Crown. There is a tavern in the town,